Yo, what is good, NYU? A Silence Behind the Violence podcast, episode number 16. So no guests today. We are going to be doing a winter season recap. Of course, there are some winter teams that got underway then, but they're a little bit in between. Obviously, they're not concluded yet with their seasons. So, Kai, which sports are we going to be recapping on this episode?
We're going to be going over fencing, swimming, wrestling, diving, can't forget about diving either, and then of course and men's and women's basketball to round us out here. But we're going to start with fencing, who consistently have a very strong program. Exciting thing about this year, of course, was Ben Bratton, his first year as head coach. Ben's been great to work with, and he's definitely made a great impression on the program. The women's fencing team, well, both won Division III Team of the Year from the USFCA. But on the women's side, 5 women's fencers were Division III All-Americans. That was Polly Adler, Captain Anna Landsman, and Maria Stamos on the first team, and then Sophia Dondich and Leanne Chan, honorable mentions. Both of those underclassmen, so a bright future ahead for the women's fencing program for sure. Anna, who we had on the podcast, if you're a regular listener or watcher, she was fantastic, and she was 12th at regionals, kind of the highlight of her final campaign. She was seeded 24th and completely blasted past that, finishing 12th. And then, of course, and we covered this in the fencing episode, but fencing is a unique sport in the NCAA landscape in the sense of there's no divisions, right? So there's a more limited number of schools with fencing programs. Therefore, it's all in one. It's collegiate fencing. But the USFCA kind of recognizes, there are traditional Division III schools, traditional Division I schools with different resources and kind of different approaches to athletics. So they still, award accordingly at the end of the year. Hence NYU Division III Team of the Year. And on the women's side, they won all but 2 of their matches against traditional Division I schools. Picked up a few D1 wins in there as well, but certainly took care of business against similar playing field, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned 5 women's All-American, rather women from the fencing team that made All-American. Same thing on the men's side. They matched that. So you had Brian Kim on the first team, as well as Darren Yen, second team, Ian Adler, Far Dixon, and Andrew Sledesky rounding out things for the men on that side of things. Adler, Dixon, Kim, and Yen all qualified for NCAAs, finished 17th as a team. And I remember reading in the recap that it was unfortunate that I believe it was Darren that had to retire due to injury, but looking back at regionals, that wasn't definitely a moment for him to be proud of. He claimed bronze at regionals, and hey, I mean, he certainly could have made it on at nationals. And I think it was a quote in the release for that it was like, hey, like, we'll never know, but how that could have transpired at nationals. Right. But hey, I mean, definitely a lot to be proud of on that front.
And I will say too about the fencing programs at nationals, the team scores are combined men and women as well. And unfortunately, the women didn't qualify anyone for nationals, so the four representatives of NYU on the men's side, carried the day. So I think finishing 17th out of 28 with just 4 athletes and on only one side of the bracket, if you will, is certainly an impressive result, especially for a first-year head coach.
Yeah, that's definitely facts. The one last thing that I have on fencing to wrap on that before we jump to the pool is that Zara on the fencing team?
Yeah.
Is that like a, yeah. Super cool to work with since like media day, obviously like super enthusiastic, newcomer to the program. And she has been like all about, just upping their media presence. The reason I bring it up is that she had this idea of taking photos like in the street. I don't know. Do you see those in Google Drive at all? They're like literally.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you know why? I think it's in a folder that I haven't shared yet because I gatekeep apparently. There is a sick photo that I'm going to pull up where I guess she's like found inspiration from wherever or something, but they're literally like on Houston Street, like Houston and Broadway, and they took these like sick photos, like completely suited up.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, precisely. That I would love to show you in just a moment. Either way, I'll flash it on the screen.
Yeah,
how about
sure.
that? Yeah, we'll do that. Let's go to swim.
Swimming. Swimming, we could do a whole podcast episode about, certainly. A fantastic program, really strong on both the men's and the women's side. We'll start with the men. 13th out of 36 teams at nationals, no easy feat at all. A great conclusion to the campaign for them there at the national meet. multiple All-Americans, seven events. They were first-team All-Americans, 6 honorable mentions as well, and a program record at nationals. In addition to multiple program records this season, but we'll stick with NCAAs for now. Connor Vincent in the 500 free set a program record, and that was in the consolation final. So didn't make the top 8 in the final, but swam in the consolation final and swam a program record. Very impressive feat there. Other program records that fell this year, Vincent also in the 1,000-yard freestyle. Leo Hahn, a rookie with a pair of program records, and then a pair of relay teams. The 400 medley and the 800 free also set program records on the men's side. But back to nationals, All-Americans David Basin, Leo Hahn, aforementioned, Thomas Pritchard, first team in 3 events. Connor Vincent, multiple events with All-America honors. Tyler Walters was part of a relay that was first team. Ajay Watanakan was an All-American in 3 events. So same as James Yan, Jaden E. Buron, and Nathaniel Yo, also All-Americans. And Leo Hahn, we definitely have to point him out in particular. The UAA Rookie of the Year. Really kind of took the UAA by storm. One of many strong first year swimmers in the program. We'll definitely touch on one on the women's side, but a really impressive campaign for them, and definitely more to talk about with the women too.
Yeah, I will do exactly that. I will say that, as you mentioned, Leo Hahn and winning Rookie of the Year. I remember the graphic we put up for that being like alongside Kaylee McIntyre and Aiden, our graphic designer. I think he did almost like a sports cards rendition. Like it was super cool.
Right.
That's like a slept on graphic for me in terms of all the stuff that we've put out, just because that was super unique. Obviously cards are this really big booming, not even industry, but just world of its own. Anyways, yeah, exactly that. On the women's side, Kaylee McIntyre, 2-time national champion in the 50 and 200 free events, 3 events, rather, at the UAA championships, won 3 different events. UAA Rookie of the Year, just as mentioned, first team All-American in 4 events, overall honorable mention in 1, 6 program records that she took down, 3 as an individual, 3 as part of a relay. And as you put in the notes here, possibly the best rookie season in program history.
I mean, of course, this is year 2 here. Don't have the firsthand knowledge of all of our rookie swimmers, and it's a storied program for sure. But you got to think. I mean, Caitlin Marshall last year winning a national championship as a freshman, of course, amazing. But Kaylee won up that with 2 and 3-time UAA champion. All these records fall. I mean, this was a banner year for swimming in the terms of program records falling, and just really strong performances from the young swimmers.
At nationals, the women's team that is, finished 5th, which is tied for their highest place ever in program history. They scored the most points ever by more than 100. They finished 3rd out of 8 teams at the UAAs. Caitlin Marshall is definitely somebody that we definitely want to shout out. Not only because she was hilarious in her one day outtakes video, super really funny sense of humor. Caitlin, she's just super funny. Overall, I think of a lot of what she said at Media Day just being just a really good peek at her personality. 4 first team All-American events in which she took home. She finished 2nd in the 200 fly. But as far as the other All-Americans, Georgia Basil, Bella Brosvik, Jess Flynn, Jolie LaFauve, Anna Lee, Emily Ma, Emery Muller, Isabel Oldham, Nicole Reniel, Candice Axod. I mean, they have been so stacked on the women's side and really performed well this year. Also worth noting at UAAs, it was who was that?
It was Marshall.
Yeah.
Aforementioned Caitlin Marshall.
Right. Yeah. I just slid her down in our notes. Caitlin won the UAA 500 free, as well as setting a 500 free program record. There was also the quartet of Muller, Marshall, Reniel, and Kaylee McIntyre that won the UAA 800 free relay title. So really impressive stuff there. Yeah.
Don't want to say more of the same, as this was certainly a fantastic year for the swimming program, but that's certainly the standard that program has set. Really awesome performances all around, and great to see such a bright future clearly ahead for them. Sticking in the pool with diving.
Yeah, we'll go diving. We'll go start with the men first. Hunter Whitbeck, two-time UAA Athlete of the Week this year. He is a graduating senior. I mean, to our records, and definitely somebody that will be missed. College Sports Communicators Academic All District, placed 8th in the 1 meter dive at regionals, 4th in the 3. Hunter's dad also was like a really good photographer. I don't know. Did you see any of those?
Yeah.
I'm sure those photos I know you saw on Google Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hunter's dad held it down. I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Great photographer and just clutch because
Yeah.
it's hard to get a really quality kind of body of photos for swimming and diving in the sense of they're on the road a lot. There's a couple of home meets, but we don't always aren't always able to get a photographer when they're on the road. So the fact that he was with the team and got some awesome diving specific photos, so we were able to highlight them was really helpful for sure. On the women's side, diving, there's a star diver for NYU, Isra Schmidt. She was the regional champion, the Northeast regional champion on both boards, the 1 meter and the 3 meter, and first team All-America in the 1 meter. So that's probably the best start to a career for an NYU women's diver ever, because last year, that's back-to-back All-America campaigns for her. Last year, she was the first rookie women's diver in program history to earn All-America honors. Followed it up this year. Was also honorable mention in the 3 meter. And can't forget about Catherine Nardone, either a very strong women's diver, also qualifying for nationals right up there with Schmidt. And the future's bright for that program as well. So, and of course, Easter's, finish in both boards and nationals really helped boost the score for the women to get them that 5th place finish. So that's a huge part of the program there too.
So we'll go a good amount about the pool. Let's go over to the mat now.
All these playing surfaces.
I know. The winter is different.
Yeah,
winter is definitely different. Probably the most diverse set of surfaces. Wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling. Great program. Another storied program with a longtime head coach. But that team, in addition to swimming, routinely in the national rankings. They ended the year ranked 22nd in the dual team rankings, and Cooper Ponce Landolfo still really a budding star for the program in Division III wrestling as a whole. All-American for the 2nd straight year. He's a sophomore. Finished the regular season with a 30-5 record, wrestling exclusively at 165 pounds. All-America status was clinched with a 6th place finish in the weight class at nationals. And the program has never had a 4-time All-American, a handful of 3-time, but Cooper's on pace. I mean, he keeps this up, stays healthy. He could easily be a 4-time All-American. Team high. Actually, he finished with 33 wins. The 30-5 record was in the regular season. Team high tying 33 wins on the year, 10 technical falls. When he's on, he's a dominant wrestler for sure. And another one who was on the podcast.
Friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod, exactly. Love Coop.
Yeah.
Great dude, and really just rooting for him to keep it going and get some more All-America finishes.
So, yeah, that was just only year 2 for Coop. He made an immediate impact last year, making an immediate impact this year. Freshman Evan Anderson. Certainly, like I said, followed in Coop's footsteps as far as just, coming in with a bang, hitting the ground running. Only he's doing so at the 285-pound heavyweight class. So he's the first ever heavyweight to qualify for nationals in program history. Surprising because it's been such a strong program here. Yeah. But, hey, it's history nonetheless. NYU has sent a Violet to nationals in every single weight class, that's a super cool flex for sure, and definitely impressive. The freshman won Freshman of the Year in the UAA, named to the All-UAA team, deservedly so. And at UAA's won the 285-pound championship. I believe he finished the regular season with a 15-3 record.
Yeah, no, a great campaign from Evan. And you might notice if, listening to Cooper's record compared to Evan's, less bouts. Kudos to Evan for the fact that he transferred here, coming into the spring semester. He started his college career at Army. Not sure. I don't believe he was on the wrestling team, but quickly made the decision to come down here to NYU, and it certainly seemed like the right one, at least as far as wrestling concerned. He's hit the ground running. The team needed a strong heavyweight, and he delivered for sure. So it was great to see, and really looking forward to watching him in the future.
Off to the hardwood.
Yeah.
We'll go with basketball. Men's basketball is who we will lead off with. Definitely the big headline there. First NCAA tournament appearance since 2016. That 2015-16 season definitely was home to a lot of different records that have stood until this year. Yeah. Those being the 18-8 record and 7-7 UAA record that the 2022-2023 team had this year. That's each of those, the 18 wins overall and the 7 in the UAA. Each win total is the most since that season for those efforts. Coach Feldman, Coach Thompson, Coach Mo, and Coach Klasky, of course. UAA Coaching Staff of the Year, and Dave Klasky was named D3Hoops.com Coach of the Year. Really, really impressive to be able to do all that. Completely new staff, and all again just in year one. In so much transition amidst all that, the chaos that is. Even just doing all of this in New York City, there's so many different factors and variables that come into play about what it is to work here, and I mean that's been detailed before, but again, to do that in the face of all that is something that has definitely been really cool.
And that goes for all these winter programs too. I mean, that's always something that all of them are juggling. Especially winter's the long season, right? You're in both semesters. It's really a grind. It's a longer campaign. So huge shout out to all these programs for juggling all that you said. But there's certainly more to tell with men's basketball as well.
Yeah, no, it's a really great point. Most definitely. Spencer Friedman, UAA first team, D3Hoops.com Region 4 Player of the Year, was named third team All-American. The team started the season on an 11-game win streak. Do you remember off the top of your head, like how long, or rather, like longest win streak since? I don't know. I was trying to find it in my research, but
I want to say it's got to be if at earliest that 15-16 year.
At earliest, yeah.
The year prior, the non-conference they maybe won like 5 straight to start, so it had to at least been since 15-16. But
right.
Back in those days, the program, I think they played I guess a tougher non-conference schedule too. So yeah, the non-conference this year allowed them to hit the ground running, and then they kept it going.
Yeah, I believe it was during, or if not shortly after that 11-game win streak, it would make sense that they appeared within the top 25 national rankings on D3Hoops.com. They came in at 18th. They won. I remember this being like a really, really big moment for the team and the program, winning the Kreger Invitational at Roanoke. I also think, to even take a step back, that prior to the season started, that was kind of added last minute.
Yeah,
if you remember that.
Yeah, and I think it was like I mentioned, the non-conference schedule. Wasn't as strong as, some other programs, I guess maybe even in the UAA. Some of that has to do with just the region that we're in and the availability of teams nearby. But I know that Roanoke tournament was a challenge. That was one that was circled. I was like, the fact they were able to come out on top was impressive for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think they started the UAA actually 2-7 in the conference, and there were 5 games remaining. And I remember we were kind of looking at each other like, okay, like what's it got to take for them? And we were like, honestly, they probably got to win out. And they did that. They ended the regular season as winners of 5 straight conference games. They finished at 7-7. They finished tied for 4th in the association, and they were able to get that at-large bid. I will speak on the trip to Mount Union. Super cool to play in that building. Just a beautiful facility. And yet at the same time, as I was looking at it, I turned to our athletic director, Stuart, and our head athletic trainer, Roy, and I said, like, hey, like, Mount Union, really, really impressive, and yet still we're going to be better next year, like,
in this,
building-wise.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to think that we will be, because it's almost going to seem so surreal. But yeah, I mean, that also is the reality. Like, we're going to have, like, a really, really cool digital element to everything, and, we hope for the presentation to be just as good for not just the student athletes themselves, of course, but also, for the fans as well that will be coming through to games. Just 2 more notes on the Ohio trip, which I was, as we've talked about, super fortunate to go with the team. We're always fortunate to go with teams. One, our bus driver was like super quirky. His name was Jeff. He had like this, like, his hair looked exactly like this wall, like straight white, very, very long flowing white hair.
Majestic.
Yeah, and I remember Coach Thompson had always like this itinerary, and it seemed to be, I mean, I didn't have any questions about it.
He's a thorough guy.
He's a very thorough guy, but the bus driver certainly had many questions about it. And Chris, like, he would give him the notes and be like, you have any questions? And he'll be like, no. It's just super funny. You're just like, all right, man, like, it's just, these are the little, like, intricacies that you don't really see unless you're traveling with the team, and something that, hey, like, now my relationship with the assistant coaches and of course Coach Klasky himself, like we'll think back to that trip, about those elements. The other part, I remember we talked about this on like offline about like that Mount Union story. Basically, the Mount Union story is there's this really talented, or was this really talented Division III player who went there, Devontae Friga. And he's this like super big content creator. I found him on YouTube during the pandemic, like 2020 or something like that. And he would just like go to parks, hoop, and like he would vlog his game days prior to that at Mount Union. And I remember like Zach Blatter is like fully aware of him. Alekia is fully aware of him. And it was like super surreal to be in that gym because I used to watch vlogs like 4 years prior of him playing there. His team was, I believe, headed to the Elite Eight at the time that COVID had shut things down. So his team, will never know. They ended up going to the national championship this year. Right? Yeah, Mount Union did on the men's side.
Oh, no. They've
no?
Final Four.
Final four. Okay.
Final
Who's
four.
who's the
It
national
was
championship?
Whitewater and eventual champion Christopher Newport.
Yeah. Talk about like two basketball programs that are so strong, like men's and women's on Christopher Newport. Anyway,
crazy.
It was so surreal to be there. Just because like I remember as I was going through like my whole like starting my own business thing, and I was trying to just like find plugs anywhere. Like he was a big help. Devontae Friga was where I remember during his vlogs, which we're getting. I mean, I think he has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He was like, yo, like if you're a creator, like just shoot me a note on what it is that you do, and then if it works out, like we can do a feature on one of my videos that gets like high viewership. And like I was able to get in touch with him. I've been in contact with him over the years, and like again, like it just was like a really full circle moment to be able to be there. And so I think that's why I like enjoyed it as much as I did. But again, I mean, it's just funny how not even the universe, but even just like Division III sports work out sometimes. That's like where it takes you in your travels. That's all that I've got on the men's side. Let's talk about the women who are extremely decorated on and off the court.
Yeah, women's basketball, an elite program for sure. They peaked as high as ranked number 1 in the country by D3Hoops.com. Finished number 5. Made the Elite Eight for the second straight year, and 7th time in program history. It's starting to become the norm over there with women's hoops. Also, second straight outright UAA championship, another huge feat, and the 3rd straight 20-win season. So, I think this was year 5 total, year 4 playing, with the COVID year for Coach Barber, and she's certainly well settled in and established a standard of real just excellence in elite basketball. And just, an elite program on and off the court, so many academic honors and everything for her athletes as well. 25-3 record this year, crazy impressive. 12-2 in the UAA, undefeated at home, which to your point was never a true, real. I mean, Brooklyn Athletic Facility is great in many ways. The fact that we are able to have our own gym with NYU at center court. In the meantime, while the Paulson Center is getting finished, but it's going to be nothing like what it's going to be starting next year.
Yeah, the quick note on that is one, like I remember when we learned like, hey, okay, halfway through the year in January, the rest of the games are going to be played in Bath. I was like, if anything, that's honestly like a big competitive advantage for us. I remember we talked about that like just in the office, because like it is unlike anywhere else that many of these UAA teams play in, and it certainly showed. The other thing too about the 12-2 in the UAA, that was just one, opening weekend where they didn't get off to the right foot. Like you could just straight up say like they're just one stomach bug away, I'm saying? Yeah, from being undefeated in the conference. And I don't think that's overly outrageous to say at all. Yeah. Either way, I mean, that's why you play the games. But, yeah, I mean, 12-2 in the UAA, 25-3 overall, super impressive. And that came with a lot of awards to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons and tons of awards. Like I mentioned, Coach Barber, another fantastic campaign for her. Second straight year that she was the D3Hoops.com Region 4 Coach of the Year. That's a Region 4 Coach of the Year double for NYU, with Clatsy getting that one as well. And then she was a WBCA National Coach of the Year finalist, which she took home that award last year. So I'm sure she's still, happy with that and happy to be a finalist again. Of course, she's in the upper echelon of women's basketball coaches out there. And then the star performer, I don't really want to call it a breakout campaign because she had a great season last year, but took her game to a completely another level. Natalie Bruns. If you follow NYU at all, you know her name at this point. UAA Player of the Year, Region 4 Player of the Year, WBCA All-American, D3Hoops.com First Team All-American, Academic All-American from College Sports Communicators. And the list goes on. I mean, First Team All-UAA, could go on and on and on. Extremely decorated campaign for Natalie Bruns, who averaged something like 15, 8, and 5 with 3 blocks a game, but most notably her 80 blocks was a single season program record. The first 70 and then the first 80 block season in program history. The next highest one was 62. Insane stuff. Just very, very hard to score on NYU down in the paint. And of course, part of that, 10 of those blocks came in one game. A single game program record tied the UAA single game program record, and not to mention that was a triple double. One of, I think, 2, could have been 3 at the end of the season, but for a long time, one of 2 Division III women's basketball players to have a triple double at all, and I believe the only one with blocks for sure. And that front court, it was so strong, of course, alongside senior Jenny Walker, also an academic All-American, second team All-UAA, the reigning UAA MVP, handed it off to Bruns this year. But her and Walker dominant down low. And then I cannot forget about an absolute menace on the perimeter and one of the best guards in Division III, Belle Palekia. Again, back-to-back UAA Defensive Player of the Year awards. Region 4 first team for the second straight season. Second team All-UAA, a WBCA All-America honorable mention. Another very decorated campaign for Belle. Scoring, rebounding, assists, steals. She really does it all. And especially, I have to mention, the team did all of this without starting point guard Jordan Janowski, who is out for the season with a preseason ACL tear, unfortunately. I know she's come a long way in her recovery. She's getting ready to go. She'll be back next year. But Belle had to take on a lot more ball handling responsibilities, played more minutes than she definitely would have if Jordan was healthy. So huge shout out to Belle for carrying that kind of perimeter weight.
Yeah, as mentioned in the baseball podcast, my girlfriend's favorite player, Belle Palekia. But then also mentioned in that podcast, though, I don't remember if it was Gabe or if it was Mike. Either way, they both agreed that Belle is just puts in such work in the VPC, and this is a direct result of that.
Absolutely.
I mean, you don't take on those minutes, you don't take all the hits, you don't lock up the other team's best player. Usually, 90% of the time, in fact, I would revise that usually without being able to put the work in the weight room. So, I mean, huge testament to, again, anyone could step on the court, but it's a lot of the stuff that we don't see behind the scenes of the VPC. So really, really big credit there. I mean, hey, who would we to be not giving credit to Holly and Brett? They
absolutely,
and the rest of the VPC staff, most definitely. Belle puts in the work, but I know that she would probably agree in that she's a product of a lot of other people putting in that time and effort into her as well.
Absolutely. And then kind of this we can call a breakout. Caroline Pepper, UAA and D3Hoops.com Region 4 Rookie of the Year, a couple of those awards for her. Certainly everyone kind of knew she had a lot of potential. She's a very talented player, a big guard who can shoot the lights out, especially when she's hot. And a really quality player, but she really emerged as the season went on. Ended up averaging 8 points a game, but that was fueled by a few 15-plus point outings at the end of the season, especially in the tournament as well. She had some fantastic games and really a silent assassin. Pep seldom shows too much emotion on the court. She's all about her business, and she really showed out this year. Can shoot the lights out. Very strong defender, and a great young addition to Coach Barber's team. And of course, Belle's a sophomore. Jordan was a junior. She's coming back next year. I mean, a lot of returning pieces, but Pep had a fantastic rookie season. And
Pep, she was first off the bench to start a lot of the year, or rather for a good part of the opening part of the year. But she played her way into the starting five, because she kind of gave the staff no choice. Hey, I'm balling out every time I come in, and then worked her way to slot in. To be able to do that as a freshman, really impressive. Really, really impressive. I think that about does it for the basketballs, wrestling, swimming, diving, and fencing. Men's volleyball did get underway during the winter, but they're very much still underway in their season. Same thing with men's and women's track and field. So we'll go ahead and just wrap those at a more appropriate time.
Yep.
Kai, you have anything
spring
else?
teams?
Yeah.
No, I mean, not right now. It's a fantastic year for NYU's winter teams. I will shout out, it might have changed after the women's basketball national championship game this past weekend, but as of the initial release, NYU's teams were 11th in the Directors' Cup standings, really, really bolstered by the winter teams and all of those NCAA's finishes. For those who don't know, the Directors' Cup is kind of a cumulative, placing or sort of award in Division III. They do it at all divisions, but for Division III, basically, every season, all of the teams finishes at the NCAA, end of season event, whether it be the tournament or a meet or what have you, counts as points toward the Directors' Cup, and that's out of 460 plus Division III schools. I think there's about 275 or so who end up scoring based on qualifying for nationals and placing there. But 11th, NYU's highest ranking since I want to say 2012, 2013, and really, really bolstered by the winter team. So a great year for NYU athletics across the board.
The Directors' Cup is not something that you hear too much about. Like I would say that I probably hadn't heard of it much until I actually got started working in Division III. But it is a huge almost, what's the word, barometer? It's a great way to measure, how strong an entire season's teams at a university or at a college or university, at an institution, have been performing. And yeah, I mean, you said exactly that. Again, we'll touch on those teams that are still competing through the winter at a later date. Spring is very much in full swing as well. They will each get their own guests. We have softball, tennis, and golf each on the books for the next 3 episodes. So again, while we didn't have a guest this week, we thought it was definitely important to do a winter season recap, because we did a fall season recap to actually start the episode. I think that was
that was episode 1. Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, this building wasn't even open when episode 1 took place. We were still in Palladium. Yeah, so it's good to be here. Episode 16 in the books. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week with a guest, and each Monday thereafter. Thanks, man.